Welcome everybody to Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I'll be your host today, Daimon, and I'm going to be talking about what I'm looking forward to in 2022. If you're not familiar with this segment and what I'm trying to do here, I'm a huge college football fan. Florida State's my favorite team, but I watch a ton of college football. So on a typical Saturday, I have 3 TVs set up in my living room, tuning in. That first set of games gets started. I want a game on all 3 TVs, and I'm going to watch until I crash at like 1 in the morning when all the late night games are over. So typically what I do is I try my best to schedule it all ahead of time, so I'm not wasting time flipping through channels looking for a game. So I usually have a list of games I plan to watch, what channel they're on, so I can quickly turn to them during each different set of games. And what I'm looking for to watch, I typically, first I play college fantasy football, so my fantasy team usually finds its way on the TVs. But really, I'm just a fan of football. So if there's a good player, a good team, anytime there's a top 25 matchup, I'm going to be watching that. So the nature of this segment is just to talk about the things that I'm looking forward to, like the teams and the players that are going to get priority on my TVs, right? So going through conference by conference, and today's conference we're going to be talking about the Big Ten. What teams, what players, what storylines am I wanting to watch? One, just because it's fun. 2, because I'm a huge fan of college football. And 3, I'm also a big fan of the NFL. If you've seen our NFL draft videos, I like to know about as many NFL prospects as possible. So the more times I get to watch a guy, the more feel I have for that player. And the more, I'm like, yeah, that guy really stood out to me. So, that you get that in those draft videos, and that's another reason why I do it. Now for the videos, I've actually been doing that my whole life. My brother and I, that's why we started this channel, because we sit around talking about draft prospects and players that excite us, forever without doing it on a video. So that's the reason we're doing the video, just to share our conversations with you, share our crazy fandom of this sport with you, sports in general with you. So with that said, let's get started on the Big Ten. Ohio State obviously is the class of the Big Ten, and they have had exciting offense after exciting offense ever since Urban Meyer got there. And then with his predecessor, it hasn't changed at all. So, this year is no different. I think Stroud is an extremely fun quarterback to watch. He struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year last year, but once he got going, it got going. Henderson is a great running back. He's a lot of fun to watch. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing what Smith, who I'm talking about, Smith Najaya? I don't know how to say his name. I'm really interested to see how he looks now that the other 2 guys that went to the NFL are no longer out there to draw attention from the defense, and he's the clear-cut number 1 guy. Very curious to see if he can continue to put that up, and who's going to step up and replace those other guys in the production, because that offense puts up tons of yards. So to me, that's first and foremost. And here's a little secret: I don't like Ohio State. I'm not a fan of them. So even though I like to watch them play, and I like to watch their players, and it's fun to watch, I typically root for them to lose. So there'll also be that. I'll be tuning in, hoping to see them lose. Anyway, that's that. Whenever you're talking about Ohio State, you got to talk about Michigan. They're the next topic of conversation in the Big Ten to me. Harbaugh's been there for a long time. I think he was on the verge of getting, ran out of town when they had that breakthrough year last year. So I'm really curious to see, can they follow that up with another good year. The quarterback situation at Michigan is interesting to me. You got McNamara versus McCaffrey, and it's interesting. McNamara has the experience. I think McCaffrey's the more talented player. So which one of those 2 wins the job? And can they take that Michigan offense to another level? Also, the running back Corum, he was the backup last year. Interested to see him as the lead back. He's really good. And then the defense. The defense lost a ton of people to the NFL, including their defensive coordinator. So can they bounce back? Can they still be, an upper echelon defense that can help them win? Otherwise, they're really going to need that offense to go to a new level in order to compete at the level they were at last year. Penn State is always an interesting team to talk about. I think since Franklin's been there, they've had some ups and downs. They've had some really good years and then some disappointing years. So I'm curious to see what this year looks like. Last year I think it was a disappointing record, but if you look at their games, I think maybe all but one of their losses was by a score. So they had a lot of close games. So, can they get over the hump this year? They got the quarterback coming back, Clifford. What does he look like? Does he advance in his game? With Dotson moving on to the NFL, who steps up to be the number one receiver, that's curious. That's an interesting storyline. It seems like Penn State always has that one receiver that really impresses you. So who's going to be that guy this year? And then the running back situation. I feel like it's been a couple years since they had a really good running back. And so will a running back step up and become like a workhorse, impressive running back? Because it has been a little bit since they had one. After Penn State, I think then you got to start looking out the West, right? Wisconsin is the next team. They always seem to be competitive. Since Leonard's been the defense coordinator there, they have had really good defenses. I know they lost a lot of talent from last year. A lot of guys that over the last 2 years, really, a lot of guys have gone to the NFL draft. So, are they able to reload? I think even the best defenses, even like Clemson, Alabama, those teams, when they're pumping guys in the NFL draft left and right, sooner or later they have that down year. Even if it's just for 1 year, then they bounce back. So, will this be a down year for Wisconsin, or will they keep that D going? And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think Braden Allen is, no surprise. Wisconsin has a good running back. That's not a surprise. But, yeah, Braden Allen's a fun guy to watch. And then Mertz, the quarterback, he's interesting. I remember watching his first start as a freshman, and I thought, wow, this will be the best quarterback Wisconsin's ever had. He looked amazing. And then I started bragging about him to my brother, and then the next thing you know, he looks terrible. So I think he's had an up and down career. Now that he's an upperclassman and he's had some experience under his belt, can he bring some consistency and take his game to a new level? If he does, then I think Wisconsin, especially if their defense doesn't take a step back, Wisconsin could be very competitive this year. If not Wisconsin, Iowa's interesting. Like Iowa's, I got some buddies that are Big Ten people, Big Ten fans, and I've often told them I think Kirk Ferentz might be the most overrated coach in America because I feel like, maybe not so much anymore, but for a while there, it was like his name was linked to a bunch of NFL jobs, and he was talked about glowingly. And I'm like, the guy's always between like 4 and 6 losses every year. I think he had like 1 year where they went to the Rose Bowl, and that was like 15 years ago. Other than that, I feel like they live with like 8, 9 losses, and they're happy. So what happens this year? This is one of those years where they have a lot of guys coming back both sides of the ball. The defense was really good last year. The offense has a lot of experience coming back, but it wasn't like they were world beaters last year. So are they able to do a new level? Will this be a year where they can kind of push past Wisconsin and make it to that Big Ten title game? I think they have a lot of talent in defense, and I'm very curious to watch their defense. But I don't know. To me, their offense is always kind of boring. I feel like it's still kind of stuck in like the 80s. And I just think they're going to have a hard time winning against the best teams in the league when they play that way. So maybe with everybody returning on the offense, or not everybody, but a lot of their offensive guys returning, maybe they have a breakthrough and their offense becomes more dynamic. But we'll see. Minnesota, I love PJ Fleck. Loved him at Western Michigan. And I think he's done a pretty good job at Minnesota, but they haven't quite got to the high level that I think he would like to get them to. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do that this year. They're a team that's pumped one wide receiver into the NFL every year. Seems like they have a guy that's there. And then last year that didn't really happen. So is a guy step up this year? I know there's a couple of different options for that. So it would be interesting to see if a guy steps up and becomes that obvious NFL type wide receiver. And in the running back room, I think they got a lot of talented running backs last year. There was a lot of injuries, so they had a lot of guys that the yards kind of got spread out because guys kept getting injured. So can they get healthy? Does one guy grab that lead role? If they do, does the offense lean on that running game? It's kind of interesting. I actually feel like Fleck, when he was this is why I really have a lot of respect for Fleck. I think when he was at Western Michigan, he kind of acclimated a lot of the stuff that was going on in the MAC and became really good at that kind of play. Since he's been at Minnesota, he's slowly turned them into an Iowa-Wisconsin kind of team where you rely on the run, you rely on defense. So can he beat them with their own game? That'll be interesting. I think this year is a year where they're there. Let's see if they can do it. Winning on that running game. Or if Morgan as a quarterback has kind of been up and down, can he put it together and take them to a new level. Michigan State's an interesting team. I think Reed is a fantastic wide receiver, and then their quarterback is it Thorne or Thorn? They seem to have a dynamic connection between the two of them. So I'm curious to watch that again. And who takes over for Walker? Walker was, if you've watched some of our NFL videos and my draft videos, you know that Walker was probably my favorite player from last year. I love watching that kid run. Who steps up and takes his place, or is it by committee? And then on the defensive side of the ball, forever Michigan State's defense was really good under D'Antonio. But I feel like the last couple of years it hasn't been the same. So can they get that back? Can they get back to that, top 20 in the country kind of defense that they used to have year in and year out? It just hasn't been there the last couple of years. Another storyline that I'm really curious about is Nebraska with Scott Frost. I thought that was a great hire when it happened. I thought he was going to finally, get Nebraska to be competitive. So far, that hasn't happened, and I'm really curious to see. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, Whipple. He came from Pittsburgh. He turned Pittsburgh's offensive game into this fantastic passing game. Before that, he was at UMass as the head coach, and UMass, even though they weren't a great team, they could chuck the ball around a bit. So I feel like he's a good offensive coordinator. But it's a weird fit to have him in Nebraska, and then they bring in the transfer from Texas, Casey Thompson, who feels like he would have fit the old Scott Frost offense. I'm not sure what he will do with Whipple, so I'm curious to see how that pairing, translates. And then, on the defense, I feel like they have struggled to. When Frost came in, he talked about those great defenses when he was a player. Under Osborne, those great defenses that they had, and under Solich, Can they get that back? They haven't had that in the Scott Frost era, I don't think. So can that defense get better? I'm curious to see that. If you watch the videos and you're familiar with, especially if you watched our introduction video, you know that even though I'm a huge Florida State fan for football, I'm a huge IU basketball fan. So I do always try to keep an eye on the IU football team and watch them when they play the better teams. At least if it's competitive, I'll watch the whole game. Sometimes I turn it off at halftime and find a different game to watch. For a couple of years, IU was starting to look competitive. Last year we had a backslide. So interesting to see what they can do this year. Can they get that back? Especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think their secondary should be really good. But can they get back to having a really good defense? And I'm curious to see what the offensive coordinator looks like. Walt Bell, if you're not familiar with him, he was the Florida State offensive coordinator for 1 year under Taggart before he took the UMass job. Did not fare well at UMass, so I'm curious to see what he looks like as an offensive coordinator at IU. Another team, last team in the Big Ten that I'm really curious about is Maryland, and that's mostly just little Tua. I want to see what he looks like. Kind of watched a few of their games last year, and I felt as the year went on, he got better and better. So I'm really curious to see, what he looks like this year. Can he really be like a stud quarterback? I think he has the potential to. So we'll see if he does. Outside of that, I didn't mention Purdue. I know they got a fun offense. I think Brom is a great coach. I hope he goes and leaves for Louisville if the Louisville job opens up. I'm obviously not a Purdue fan. I don't like to watch Purdue. The only time I've consistently watched Purdue was when Breeze was there, and that was just because Breeze was so undeniably talented. You had to watch him. So I'm not really going to be watching Purdue, even though I do know that they have a good team and they're fun to watch. I refuse to watch them. Except for the bucket game, I'll probably watch that if I think IU has a chance to win it. And then you got 3 teams: Northwestern, Rutgers, and Illinois. Northwestern, another good team. I just think they're boring, so I typically don't watch them. If they're having a really good year, I might watch them towards the end of the year. If they're if they're in the top 25 and it's a top 25 matchup, then I'll watch them. But I'm not going to go out of my way to watch them otherwise, because I just think that they play a boring style of football. Not that it's not good, I just don't think it's all that fun. And then Rutgers and Illinois, they're just, I'm sorry, they're just not very good teams. If they start getting better, if Shiano makes Rutgers better, maybe I'll start to tune in. If the new coach of Illinois, starts making them better, then maybe I'll tune in. But for now, I just don't find them that interesting. So sorry. So anyway, that's kind of the things that I'm looking for, the players and the teams that I'm looking to watch in the Big Ten this year. They're the ones that are going to have some screen time on my TVs, and hopefully I can find some NFL prospects in there so that I can talk about them come draft time. There should be several amongst those Big Ten teams. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it entertaining or at least maybe informative. Please hit some comments. There should be some Big Ten fans that know me, so I'm expecting some comments from you guys. Let me know what I forgot. Let me know what I missed. And if you had fun, help us grow our channel. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. We're trying to grow our channel. We're trying to reach more people, and we're hopeful that that people start enjoying our content that we're putting out there and interact with us, because that's really why we chose to do this. So anyway, that's the video for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.